All right, so on this part now for the video, we're going to look at problem number 17 because I did 16 in class with us. So I'm going to also put up the key for 16. So on number 17 on the review, it says we've got, it says find the midpoint of each side of the kite formed by the points A, -5, 2, B, 0, 5, C, 5, 2, and D, point 0, -5. So, and then we want to connect all the midpoints, and then we want to classify that quadrilateral there. So first thing, go ahead, plot your points. So A is at -5, 2. Now you got to be kind of careful on this graph. It's not the nicest. It's counting by twos, and we've got like points with 5 in them. So it's going to be in the middle. So -5 and then 2. So that's going to be right here. That's going to be point A. And y'all, the graph is really just to give you a visual idea. You're going to be focusing on using the actual points in any calculations. And then B is at 0, 5. So there's B. C is at 5, 2. So over 5 and up 2. So here's point C. And then D is at 0, -5. So 0, -5 right here. That's D. So connect your points. And we can see we have a kite. Okay, now it says we need to find the midpoint of each side. So again, since these are not the nicest numbers, what you're going to want to do is going to use the midpoint formula. The midpoint formula. So for the midpoint for A, B, and I start off by calling these W. So I name my midpoints. I got to give them a new name so I know what calculations I'm doing there. So W is going to be the midpoint of side AB. And again, write small because we have several steps we have to do. So for the midpoint for W there, we're going to do 0 plus -5. So I'm adding my x's over 2. And then for the y's, we do the same thing. So 5 plus 2 divided by 2. So point W is going to be at the point -5 over 2, and then 7 over 2. So you can go plot that -5 over 2. Y'all, that's -2.5. Okay, so we're going to see this number a lot. So 5 over 2 is 2.5, and 7 over 2 is 3.5. So kind of keep that in mind as we're doing these calculations. So y'all, -2 is right here. -3 would be exactly in the middle. So 2.5 is like a quarter of the way. So -2.5, and then it's at 7 over 2, so 3.5. So there's 2, and then 3 is in the middle, and 1/2. So it's right here. Okay, now you can see why we need the actual coordinates and don't necessarily rely so much on what your picture looks exactly like. So that's point W. Now, the midpoint of BC. So I'm going to call that one X. So this is going to be the midpoint of BC. So I'm going to take the coordinates for B and C, and I'm going to put them into the midpoint formula. So B is 0, 5, and C is at 5, 2. So I'll do 5 plus 0 divide by 2. And then now do the y's. 2 plus 5 divide by 2. So again, we will come out with 5 over 2, positive this time, and 7 over 2. And if you are struggling with the calculations on this, you can just type these individually, like each fraction that's in here, you can type it into the calculator, and that will take care of it for you in the calculator. So there's point X, 5 over 2, 7 over 2. So here's 2, and then we go 1/2, and then we go up 2, and then 3.5. So right there. So there's point X. Now, I'm going to call point Y. It's going to be the midpoint of CD. The midpoint of CD. So I'm using the points C and D to find that midpoint. So C and D, so we're going to do 5 plus 0 divide by 2. And then we will do 2 plus -5 divide by 2. So 5 plus 0 is 5, so we get 5 over 2. And then 2 plus -5, that's -3, so it's -3 over 2. So there's our other one, 3 over 2, that's 1.5. So that just can help you plot a little bit easier. So point y is at 5/2, -3/2. So again, here's our 5/2, 2.5, and then down 1.5. So not quite to the first line, but it's right here. This is a little bit over halfway because halfway would be -1. So you have to go like 3/4 of the way there. But that's point y. Okay, now point z would be the midpoint of our final side. So we got to find the midpoint of side AD. So AD. So we're going here -5 plus 0 for the x's. And then now we do the y's. 2 plus -5 divided by 2. So point Z would be at -5/2. And then 2 plus -5 is -3/2 again. So there's point Z. So again, -2.5 and then -1.5. So right there. So that is point Z. And again, you need the coordinates rather than looking so much at the picture. So now we found our midpoints of our sides. Now we got to go connect them. We got to go connect them. Okay, now you may be saying, okay, well, I can see that it's going to be a square. Well, we got to prove it again. So first thing that we got to do is remember our technique that we're going to use to kind of simplify is we're going to find the lengths of all 4 sides. And this works for anytime you're trying to classify a quadrilateral here. Okay, we're going to find the lengths of the 4 sides. All right, so the lengths of the 4 sides. So step 1, length of sides. Okay, length of sides there. So now I'm going to find the length of WX, XY, YZ, ZW. And since these are kind of weird points, I'm not really going to count them because yes, I know they're horizontal and vertical lines, but since it's weird, like X values and Y values on them, I'm going to use the distance formula. So WX. Okay, so the length of WX is going to be, and so you're going to have to write very small on this. And again, we're going to just type this in the calculator. So you write it down on your paper properly so that you show your work, and then you just type it into the calculator. So WX, X is going to be my 0.2, so that's going to be my X2, Y2. W is going to be my X1, Y1 as I'm plugging in here. So for X, the X coordinate is 5/2. Minus, now I got to go get the X coordinate from W, so it's -5/2. Close parentheses, square that, plus, now do the same process for the Y values. So we're going to do the X one, so 7/2, minus, and then do the Y value for W, +7/2. And then you can just type this into your calculator. And you will find the length of WX should come out to be 5. So the length of WX will be 5. Now let's go look at the opposite side from it, because again, if we're going to show it's a parallelogram, first off, we have to show both pairs of opposite sides are congruent. So we're going to find the length of ZY. So ZY, okay, same process. So for the Y, look here, I'm going to do 5/2. Because that's the X coordinate for point Y. And I'm going to subtract. I'm going to get the X coordinate for point Z, and it's -5/2. Close parentheses and square that. And now do the same process with the Y's. -3/2 minus -3/2. So this is the length of ZY, and again, just type this into your calculator. So the length of ZY will also be 5. Okay, so the lengths of my opposite sides so far are both the same. Now I have to go and show the lengths of WZ and XY. So WZ, and again, it's just the distance formula many, many, many times over. So WZ, so again, since Z is like the second point there, I start with those coordinates. So I have -5/2 minus, and then I go to W and it's -5/2. Close the parentheses, and yes, you'll have those double negatives, or if you know what double negatives do, you can rewrite that appropriately. And then now do the Y's. So again, starting with point Z, I got -3/2 minus, and then for W, we have 7/2. Close that, square, and make sure that all gets into the square root. And so again, type that in there, and you should get that it is also going to be 5. So WZ is 5. And then now we have to also go and calculate XY. So I'm going to move down here. I'm going to need a little bit more room. So XY, so find the length of XY. And again, for XY, now we do 5/2. So again, since I labeled it XY, I'm starting with the coordinates from point Y. So my X there is 5/2 minus 5/2 squared plus, and then now I do the Y coordinates. So -3/2 minus 7/2, and that gets squared as well. And so you find the length of XY, and XY is going to also be 5. So what do you notice about, number one, both pairs of opposite sides? Are they congruent? Yes. Since both pairs of opposite sides are congruent, we have a quadrilateral. And then now, since all 4 of those sides are all the same, we can have either a square or a rhombus. So to tell which one it is, you have to look at the lengths of your diagonals. So right now I'm going to find the lengths of my 2 diagonals, which will be WY and XZ. And if the diagonals are congruent, you have a square. If the diagonals are not congruent, then you have a rhombus. So WY. So WY, we're finding the length of WY. So W, we do the X coordinates, and Y. So I'm starting with the coordinates for Y because that's like my second point. So I have 5/2 minus, and then the X coordinate for W is -5/2 squared plus, and then now do the Y coordinates. So -3/2 minus 7/2 squared. Okay, and you can put that into the calculator. And so you should find that the length of WY would be 7.1. And then now also do the length of XZ. So XZ, same process. So XZ, so we have 5/2 or -5/2 minus 5/2 squared plus, and then do the Y's as well. So -3/2 minus, and then the Y coordinate for point X is 7/2 squared. And if you type that in, you also get that that is 7.1. So what do we see about our diagonals? They are congruent. So in order to classify our shape here, we got to write a little summarizing statement. We say all 4 sides are congruent and the diagonals are congruent. So that tells us we have a square. So that would be your final written summarizing answer. Okay, so now the last couple problems on here, it says use the given endpoint R and midpoint of RS to find the coordinates of the other endpoint S. So I'm giving you an endpoint, I'm giving you a midpoint, and I'm having you work backwards to find the coordinates of the other endpoint. So R is at 8, 0. So that would be my X1 and my Y1. Okay, so remember the midpoint, it's X1 plus X2 divide by 2 and y1 plus y2 divide by 2. So point S is going to be our x2 and our y2. So we're going to figure these out here. So x1 is 8, so 8 plus, now I don't know the x coordinate of point S, divide by 2, but I know if I put those two in the midpoint formula, it should give me the x coordinate for my midpoint, which is 4. So now just solve this. We're going to do times 2 and times 2. So 8 plus x2 equals 8. And then subtract 8 from both sides. So the x coordinate for point S is going to be 0. Now we'll just repeat the same process, but do it with the y's. So point S is at 0, comma, and now we'll figure out the y coordinate for it. So we have 0 plus y2 divided by 2 equals, and what's the y coordinate for our midpoint? -5. So times 2 times 2. So you get 0 plus y2 equals -10. And then you would subtract off 0, but that's not going to change anything. So the y coordinate is -10. So point S is at 0, -10. Okay, so 19 and 20 are just like that, and that covers, if you watch this video and the other video, that covers all the different types of problems that you have on the review. So if you have any questions, please let me know. You can send me a message through Canvas, or you can ask me in the morning or during advisory time. Just ask me for a pass by sending me a message through Canvas. All right, see you guys later.